All right, everybody. Welcome to Building Bridges, a series of open discussions brought to you by Arm & Arms Committee for Social Justice. Today, our first open discussion features the Trenton Police Department, and we are really excited to be here and hear what the detectives that have joined us have to say today. So before we start though, we're gonna go over a couple rules of engagement. 5 little rules. Please mute your microphone when you're not speaking. We're asking you to be mindful of your background noise, position your camera properly, limit distractions, and please avoid multitasking. All right. So like I said earlier, this open discussion is brought to you by our Social Justice Committee here at Arm & Arm. We are a committee comprised of staff members who are really dedicated to being agents of change. Our efforts include educating staff and clients about some of the injustices that our community members face. But in addition to that, we try and build bridges with our neighbors and our local government and law enforcement officials. And we try and end racial discrimination so that we can make our communities places where people really have the possibility to thrive. I am Andrea Melton. I am the committee chair. My email is andream@armandarm.org. Thank you so much for joining us. So today we have detectives Charles Lamon from the Trenton Police Department. He is the Community Affairs and Youth Services Supervisor. We also have Detective Pina here, who works in Community Affairs and Youth Services as well. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome. We really want to get to know you better in the beginning of this presentation. So we have a couple of questions geared towards that. And if you're ready, I say we should just jump on it. Are you ready?
Yes, we're ready.
Okay, all right. So first couple of questions, and either of you, please feel free to answer first, okay? What made you want to become a police officer and why do you do what you do?
I'll get the newly arriving detective answer first. Ladies first.
All right. Okay, so what made me want to become a police officer and why do I do what I do? So for me, I have been in the city of Trenton since I was born. I'm 25 years old, so I've been here pretty much my entire life. I've never lived outside of the city. Even though I didn't go to, I did go to Trenton Public Schools up to the to 5th grade, and then I went to TCA, which is Trenton Catholic Academy. It still felt like home though, because I attended school with a lot of kids that were from Trenton. The reason why I decided to become a police officer was because I've always been very focused on doing community service and doing things for my community. To me, it was just knowing that, I got my education at LaSalle University and I was able to do criminal justice, and knowing that I wanted to pursue some type of career in criminal justice, I first looked at my community. I wanted to see what I could do with my community. So like I always say, if you have something, why not give it to your community before you go give it somewhere else? So for me, it was coming back to my own community, serving here, being able to help people. I grew up with a lot of people that I see nowadays, and not even involved in the criminal justice system, just, seeing them in the community. When they see familiar faces that they know, it's a little bit easier, they feel at ease sometimes. So for me, becoming a police officer was important, especially as a minority, especially for the Hispanic community. I am Guatemalan, so we have a huge Guatemalan population in Trenton. So to me, that was big. I love what I do. I wouldn't trade it. And I'm just happy to be in Trenton and being back in the community I was raised in.
Wow, that is amazing. Thank you. We're an organization that's all about our community as well. So hearing that is like a breath of fresh air. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Detective Lamon, would you like to add anything to that?
No, I think most police officers do become police officers because they want to serve the community. Part of it is also the adventure. You meet a lot of people and you experience all types of different lifestyles when you become a police officer. So you're engaged with people that may look like you or not look like you or don't speak the same language, and you still have to relate to them because you have to address their issue. So becoming a police officer for me, I made that decision because I just wanted to serve my community. I'm born and raised here in Trenton, and always had an affiliation here with Trenton, whether it's through Trenton Catholic schools, public schools, working through the summer programs. I've always had a job here in the city, and went away to school and just wanted to be back here really and serve my community. And so here I am. Been a police officer here since 2006. Prior to that, I started in 2003 as a dispatcher, and so I have 17 years here on the job. And technically, I could retire at 25, but I'm probably go till 30
Okay.
because I love this city and I have the time.
Wow. Well, thank you. Thank you both for your service. It means a lot. It means more than you may know, right? So next couple of questions. What is it like to be a Black man or a minority in a police department? And do you feel like more of a protector or provider? Are you protecting from bad, or do you think you're providing peace?
Uh, to be a Black man or minority here in the department, sometimes it seems as if it's a struggle because you are the minority here and you are, it may seem like you don't have enough people that have your same mindset or have your same background when you're the minority. And as far as do I see myself as a protector or providing peace, I see myself always as a person that provides peace. I'm not really an argumentative person. I always want to either you're right or you're wrong, and if we can't come in between, it is what it is, and I'm easily able to move on from whatever the divide is. Um, but back to how what it's like to be a Black man here in the police department, it's really a struggle. Um, you know, because you wonder, you always want to have, I guess the best thing to say is um, a relationship with your community. And a lot of times when you're out there, you're only seeing people at their worst. You know, either they're a victim of a crime or they're in the process of committing a crime or they're a suspect. So that's most of our interactions when you're in patrol. And having that interaction sometimes causes a divide with your community. And so it's a struggle having that divide. Um, that's why you have to have community type policing, community type organization where you're doing more than impacting or having coming across people in those circumstances. And that when you have community policing, you come across kids that are playing basketball, mentoring. You come across neighborhood associations, and you do a lot of more with the community that is wanting that interaction in a good way.
Okay. I think that's exactly what we need, right?
Yes.
More community policing. Thank you so much for answering those questions. Detective Pino, would you like to add to that, or should we hop on to the next slide?
We can go to the next slide.
All right.
I think Sergeant Layman covered a lot for that.
You did. Okay. All right. So our next slide is a very interesting set of questions, right? How do you feel about the current events on Capitol Hill? Have you heard about countrywide riots, Trump supporter acts of terrorism? How do you feel about these specific Trump supporters? And how are you reassuring Trentonians that they're safe? What's already in play, and can you summarize a long-term plan?
You can take whichever one you want, Detective Pena. I talked a lot on the last one, so go ahead.
All right, I'll start with the first. How do you feel about the current events in the Capitol Hill? As you know, I don't think it matters as a police officer or as a regular civilian for that question. I think seeing what happened at the Capitol Hill hurt. As someone that lives here, seeing something like that happen For me, it was upsetting, just seeing that we, we can't even hold, something important, an important meeting or anything without acting, I call it acting a fool, right? Being in disorder. It's really just upsetting. Like I've been thinking about this question, since we talked about it. And I don't think there really is words to express how it truly feels, because for me, like I said, becoming a police officer, you value all this more, right? You value being part of law enforcement. You value being able to be there for the people. And just viewing the videos, viewing the videos of the things that were happening, viewing the videos of people getting inside and taking it as a joke, sitting in, Pelosi's desk, things
Right.
like that was just, I couldn't believe that this was actually happening, but this is what was built. This was what was made to be like this at this point, right? And I don't know, I really like, it's heartbreaking, it's heartbreaking seeing that people will do that, and, taking time to actually think this out and do it and not worry about anything else. And of course, when you look at the picture, everyone says it, like it's a group of whites instead, where there's no minorities there. So with everything that we battle with racism and everything like that, you automatically start thinking like, what is your plan? Like, like what else can happen? Like inauguration is coming and you're already thinking like, what else can happen? Because in all honesty, I never thought something like that would happen. I
Right.
haven't seen it in the 25 years that I've been alive.
Right.
And, I've seen terrorist attacks. I do remember 9/11, but that was huge, but to see something like this, because I've been to Washington, D.C. before, and, I've spoken to my colleagues, you're not even able to get close like that. So knowing things like that is like, it's just really upsetting. I think this was definitely something where, it hurt America in general. Like, it hurt the people in general. It hurt minorities in general, because especially when we compare what happened to, when we do have other protests that are going on and they're not like this. And they're viewed as differently, so that's my answer.
That's a good answer. And I think a lot of us feel the same way. Just it was a complete violation,
Right.
right? You brought up inauguration though. Speaking about inauguration, there's going to be supposed to be all these other protests going on, even in Trenton, right? Is there a plan that the Trenton Police Department has to keep Trentonians safe that you know of? Detective Lamon, you could answer on that. Detective Pina, either of you?
Can't really discuss what the exact plan is, but of course, we plan on keeping everyone here safe in the city of Trenton. We have multiple jurisdictions that are going to be in place, and in case anything happens, hopefully nothing does happen. And if people want to come and protest, that's their American right. So come on and protest if you want to, but as long as it's peaceful, that is perfectly fine. And we're just fine with that. We'll be there to not only protect them, but protect the people, that just in case something does happen, we're as a law enforcement, we're here to protect everybody.
Okay. All right, great. That's good to hear. Anyone on the committee, please feel free to share anything. If you have anything to say, please turn your microphone on, I'm sorry. Let us hear you, okay? All right.
I'll just add that for Capitol Hill, the the riot, the looting, and the attack on law enforcement, attack on the buildings, that was just totally disgusting to me. I don't condone violence in any way, um, not in that fashion. That was
No.
just despicable, and those people all deserve to be locked up for what they did. They're an embarrassment to not only their community but to the United States.
All right. I agree, and I appreciate you getting that off your chest and saying that. We all feel the same way. Well, I feel the same way. I can't speak for everyone, right? All right. So the next couple of questions that we have you ever been discriminated against? I'm sorry, does someone want to say anything? No, okay. Have you ever been discriminated against and almost turned your back on the job? What pulls you back? And how can Black men do better to put their best foot forward when dealing with officers that are overusing their authority? Last question on the slide. Do you think that any of the laws or policies in place since the huge protest movement will be effective long term? Oh, you're muted.
You're muted, sorry.
I'll take the first one. Have I ever been discriminated against and almost turned my back on the job? What pulls you back? No, I don't think I've ever been discriminated against when it comes to my job. Doesn't mean it didn't happen. It could be that maybe I didn't notice it, because things happen. You know, a lot of times you may see someone else get promoted or given a certain position, and you question for yourself, hey, why didn't I get it? Sometimes they may be racially motivated. It may be nepotism. It may be just because, you know, they're friends with someone. It could be all the above. So I can't really say I have been discriminated against because of the color of my skin.
Okay.
I want to add to that question. Sometimes when we view discrimination, we view it as like one race against another race. But I will say that it can happen in our own race. So as you know, as a Hispanic Latina woman, like I was raised here in Trenton, you know, I come from two parents that were immigrants. They've had the privilege of being able to become residents, but they weren't always residents, you know. So I went through the struggles of what it was like to have illegal parents and growing up here in the city. And when you succeed, the problem with, you know, my race that I can say is when you succeed and people automatically think that you forget where you come from or you forget what you go through, and you don't. You know, you don't forget none of that because that's who makes you who you are. You know, if you forget it, then that's a personal, you know, that's a personal choice that you choose to forget that, but you don't. I know I haven't, because everything my parents did for me have brought me to where I am today. So I've been on a couple of jobs where, you know, people of the same race as myself, Guatemalan specifically, and you know, they're like, oh, you think you're better than everyone now just because you're a cop, or you think you're something special now, or anything like that. And they'll yell out slurs to you that, you know, that they wouldn't like said to them by even their own people or by any other race. So I think sometimes we forget that, like we forget that we are discriminated by our own sometimes, you know. And even just besides being a cop, like, you know, there's a lot of discrimination in your own race. Before I became a cop, it was the same thing. When you do something that, you know, people don't like, they automatically think that you're different or anything. So I will say that I have experienced that, and it's not good, you know. It doesn't feel good either, because you're like, hey, like, you know, I understand where you're coming from, I get your feelings, but like, don't treat me any differently. I didn't forget who you are, you know. Don't
Right.
forget who I am just because, you know, I'm doing something different now. So yeah, I think there needs to be a lot of improvement in that.
I agree. I agree. Okay. I would love for one of you to answer the next question here. How can Black men do better to put their best foot forward when dealing with officers that are overusing their authority? And not even Black men, let's say everyone. How can we
Well,
all put our best foot forward?
well, we can always start with remembering that the courtroom does not start on the street. Just because an officer may arrest you or give you a ticket or yell at you or say anything inappropriate to you. That's not where you settle it. You don't have to stoop to anyone's level that's disrespecting you, whether it's at your job or an interaction with law enforcement. You never have to step to someone's lower level of disrespect towards you. So always try and think of it. To me, you should always try and approach life that way because it will be beneficial to you. When dealing with law enforcement, somebody that may have authority to determine your freedom, to determine whether or not you get a ticket, you should always come with your best foot forward and not stoop to anyone's level that may be disrespectful to you. Always be honest and see where it goes from there. And if something does turn bad, where you feel like something wrong happened to you, then you take it to the next step, but you don't take it directly with that officer. You could take it to his internal affairs unit. You could take it to a county prosecutor. You could take it to the attorney general's office. Someone always has a boss, and even the attorney general has a boss, which is the governor. Even the governor has a boss, right? So we all have. There's always another way, and never right there, which is the lowest level. Arguing with somebody, yelling at someone, going back and forth. That's not. I don't recommend that for anybody, no matter what your race is.
All right. Okay, well, I think that's definitely something that our community needs to hear. And I think that's a little easier said than done for some people.
Yeah,
But
I think it's definitely easier said than done. As a black man myself, my heart stops when I see lights, and I don't care if it's a black cop, white cop, Spanish cop. That's just how I'm programmed, and nothing you could take away from that, or change that unless we have more things like this going on. Personally, I don't think it just happens with saying it. I think that's something that I've heard many times. I've had people come to schools and talk, and still to this day have experienced, difficulties. I myself, live by the golden rule, so um, I think it definitely is easier said than done. Um,
you're right. It is easy said than done, but it's also.
And I think that also with bringing things to court, I think that a lot with that, you also have to bring people with you to court, and that's not always the easiest for people already in a certain situation. So I think you may not have that money or that person to call, that support. All you have is that moment.
right.
And I think everything always doesn't get brought back to court, and I think that's corrupt in itself. So
Okay, I got a couple of questions for you. If let's say you are engaged in some type of motor vehicle stop or interaction with a law enforcement and they're being disrespectful to you, um, do you think that being disrespectful back to them is going to better your situation?
no, but I think it's more times than none it's their word against mine. If we are going to court and if we are moving things forward, um,
Yeah.
let's say I'm alone. Let's say he brings a car of 3 other people. Let's say his sheriff or whoever you're saying to speak of may not come. I think all these things are possible, and I think everything you're saying is also like within reason as well. But you just can't help these feelings that young black men have. I feel like.
You're right, but also I can assure you, no matter what your race is, you get pulled over. You're nervous, no matter what your race is.
Yeah, but I understand. I understand. I just don't think guns have been pulled out on just anybody. Um, and like I said, it's on TV now. It's going to be more than just a one meeting. It's going to be more than just one policy. It's going to need to be, because we're really trying to build bridges, honestly.
Right.
And I love the fact that we're here right now. I love the fact that we're both being transparent. I love this is what it is about. And this is doing a lot for me right now. And in terms of me being optimistic in law enforcement, and so I just want you to know that too. But like I said, I'm just being transparent in terms of like this is how 24/7 live and direct. It's just the feeling that it can be me, and then whoever is in that other car can be having his worst day, and overuse his authority. And like I said, I'm God fearing, golden rule type of guy, and it still can be me. So that's just where that's coming from. But I understand, Sergeant.
No problem. I'm sorry, but my confidence is usually on 1,000. So at no day am I going to say that it's going to be me. I'm as part of the first question. Would I ever turn my back on my job because of how someone else is treating me? There is no way I'm turning back on my job because how someone else is treated. I don't care if it's my boss, my wife, or a friend. They will have zero impact on me and my work because this is a big part of me. This is what I chose to do, and almost like it's a career. It's not even a job, because this is how your whole life changes when you become a police officer. You're held to a different standard that carries on to you no matter where you go, whether you're working or you're not. And so anybody that is out there doing otherwise is holding this job to a different standard, and whatever happens to them, if they're not doing their job, guess what? That's why they've implemented a few policies now, such as body worn camera. Every officer has it. They should not be interacting with people without engaging their body worn camera that's going to record conversations and interactions. So it's not just the police officer's word against yours. We now have body cameras, so now we have 3 different levels of testimony. So it's not just uh, he said, she said. We all now have something to protect us, not only civilians but law enforcement. We use that body worn camera for us also, for our protection also, because people accuse us of things that never happen, and this happens every single day. Vice versa. It goes both ways. Things law enforcement may see something happen that a civilian does, and think, hey, that's something that's illegal. And guess what? You see it on camera. Nah, that's not the way it happened, man. You're wrong, and you need some training.
Okay. All right, and we'll dive more into the body cameras. We have questions about that in the next couple of slides, so I'm looking forward to diving in that a little bit more too. But you spoke about that as one of the new policies that were put in place. What about using force as a last result? Do you think that's something that'll last? How do you feel about that?
Technically, that was already in place, that using force should always be the last result. And there's an escalation of force depending on what the person you're interacting with is conducting. So that was technically already in place. I think overall, the Attorney General recently came out with a new directive, just emphasizing that we are protectors more than enforcers. And that's something that's been emphasized in trying to, let people know, and us as in law enforcement, to have that we have a different mindset in law enforcement. We should be coming as the sheep herder, not the sheepdog. We're the protector, not always the warrior. Are we the warrior? Yes, but the hat we're gonna always approach with is protector.
Okay. All right. And does anyone from the committee want to say anything, make any kind of comments? If you feel like you do, please feel free to. Okay, otherwise we'll head on to the next set of questions that we have here. So I think it was nice getting to know you guys a little bit more, right? Those first set of questions were really geared towards seeing where your heads were at and really seeing what you felt about different things. But now we're going to get to the nitty gritty. You ready? All right. So the first couple of questions that we have here in this slide, what type of race sensitivity training do your officers have to undergo? Is this mandatory for all officers? In your opinion, do your officers truly believe race sensitivity training is necessary? Are there any tools for measurement? And has the department let anyone go due to race insensitivity?
I can't really speak on has anyone been let go, but I want to say it's borderline that they were. Maybe one person a few years ago. Something he said inappropriately on Facebook. So, do we have race sensitivity training? Yes, we have training all year long. Every couple of days, we get something new on our training program we call Power DMS, and it's all mandatory. Everyone has to take a test at the end of it. Everyone has to read it, and it is necessary. This day and age has totally shown you that it's necessary. Not only do law enforcement need race sensitivity training, I think the whole country, the whole world needs race sensitivity training. And we actually, this whole year, 2020 was exactly that. You know, to me, this is the first time I've seen other countries protesting for Black Lives Matter. This is the first, even though we've been, developing Black Lives Matter for quite some time.
Right.
This is the first year that other countries were involved due to George Floyd. So I'll let Glendy continue. I've talked too much. I'm sorry, Glendy.
It's okay, because you got all the answers. So, in your opinion, do your officers truly believe that race sensitivity training is necessary? I believe that they do. I can't speak for every single officer, but I will say that the officers that I have spoken to, we all believe that race sensitivity training is important. Things change with race all the time. So it's important to keep up with it, learn about different races, learn about different cultures, different religions. We deal with all that. We have to understand that we're in Trenton, right? We're right in the capital. So we get a little bit of everything. So it's important to understand how people function, why they function a certain way, why they may do something, why they may feel a certain way. So it's important to know all these things, and I think it's definitely important to keep training and keep up to date with that. So
Definitely, I agree. Let's jump into the next question. How are you trained to de-escalate mental health situations? And are there any plans to involve health professionals to respond to mental health situations?
We have mental health de-escalation techniques such as, just talking, waiting for the right staff to come and arrive. Sometimes it may be something medically, and we're trained to see that. We'll call an ambulance, or something that may be in a home, we'll call our mobile response. We have many different partners within the city, Trenton, that we try to get them out there to help people that may be having a mental health situation. So yes, we have nurses that come out and teach us other things about mental health. We have so many different things. It's just, like I said, training is usually, when do we not have training? It's it's a better question.
Okay.
So you think there's too much training?
No, I think that training should be done. So if it's just always something new is what I'm trying to emphasize. And it's usually annually too. So it's not like you get a little bit of information this year and you forget about it after a year or two. It's usually updated every single year.
Okay.
Is there like a way to show that the officer is up to date, or is it just you just kind of going?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
I said, is there a way to show that an officer is keeping up, or I
Yes,
mean, clearly, if he, okay, go ahead.
yes, our training unit keeps track of everyone because it's on a computer, and it keeps track of everyone that is viewed it, taken a test, how long it took to take the test, and whether in their score.
So what's happening if someone's continuously scoring low?
Then they get some special training.
They get special
remedial.
training.
Yep,
Okay.
you get just
Next
special
level.
remedial training. You wanna, if you don't pass.
Okay. Wow. You know, I'd be really interested in finding out what that extra training looks like.
It'll be the same thing, but it'll be in person with the staff.
Okay.
Because like I said, usually it's over the computer, especially now with COVID. So if someone doesn't pass, they'll have to bring them in personally and give them instruction.
Okay.
Detective Lemon, is the training that you receive specific to the needs of the Trenton community, or is it more like generic, like all New Jersey policemen receive similar training?
All New Jersey policemen receive similar training. If anything specific to just Trenton, it'll be it wouldn't be training. It'll be more like a advisory. Like they'll advise you of maybe a mental health home, like a home that's just for mentally ill people, and they'll tell you where it is, what you may come across, and stuff like that.
All right. Thank you for answering these questions. I think these are really great responses. This is what our community members need to hear. So I'm thankful. But for time's sake, I say we continue. Okay.
I got all night.
You got all night. He's ready.
Because
Okay.
these are the type of questions, like you said, that the community really needs to know, and a lot of times we have myths in the community that someone say something one time and it's taking legs, like the mental health question. We get mental health training all year long regarding that, and we deal with mental health people, and we have these partners that have been in place for many years. It's not something that's like that's just sprouting legs due to something that happened just now. But yet again, we still have the notion that law enforcement doesn't have mental health training. No, we don't have. We're not doctors. We're not psychologists. We can't diagnose, oh, that person has schizophrenia, this person has autism. We can't diagnose those type of things, but we do know the signs of it. And we are very quick to have an ambulance or someone else, a professional, take a look at somebody.
Okay, that's really good to know. Good to hear. Thank you.
Well,
All right. So you said you were ready. Said you was ready. Okay.
ready.
George Floyd. Could it happen in Trenton? Why or why not?
You want the old guy's view, or you want the young officer?
I'm gonna answer that question first, okay? And then you're gonna back off of what I say, because you always give the intellectual, so. So what I'm gonna say is I feel like it can happen anywhere. I don't think there's like, how do I explain it? Like, I don't think situations like that discriminate for anywhere. But can, I don't even want to ask the question, can it be avoided? Because, that takes training and everything which should be received. But, man, you got me with this one. No, seriously, I feel like it can happen anywhere. There's situations that you get into as a police officer that you don't know what exactly is going to happen, even if you follow what you do. And some people do lose their temper sometimes. Some people, situations don't always go as planned. Every day is a new day, right? Every day you are experiencing something different. you don't know how that person's going to act with you as well, especially with everything that's going on. You know, I was paying attention to one of the committee members when you were speaking right now with Sergeant Lamon and telling him how you feel about, you know, being a Black man and being stopped by the police. You know, you already have a guard up now. Like you built this guard up and you feel like you have to, and it's because of everything that's been going on. It's because of everything that you see on social media. You know, we become aware of that, and it's necessary, you know, and we can't take that away from you because that's what's been happening. So how can you expect, you know, how can we expect it to be any different when this is what has been happening? You see it on social media, it's everywhere, it's on the news, it's blatantly open to you to see it. So automatically you're gonna feel like, okay, what if I'm next? Like, what if this is gonna happen to me? So when you ask this question, could it happen in Trenton? Why or why not? I feel like it can happen anywhere, because if you have any Black man already anywhere feeling like that, you know, that means that they already feel like it could happen in their city as well. So I don't know if that kind of like, you know, makes sense a little bit, but I feel like, you know, if we already have people putting their guard up, you know, in general, because I feel like as police officers, we're viewed as one, you know. People don't differentiate us really by department. They don't differentiate us by, oh, you guys are from Trenton, and you know, it's law enforcement in general when it comes to these situations. That's how it's put. So that's my answer. I know Sarge is going to give us the intellectual part now.
Well, I'll try and just isolate it just to, you know, George Floyd, exactly what happened to him. So he was accused of a crime, and he was stopped by two officers initially. I think another two officers came as backup. To make a long story short, they couldn't get him into a police car handcuffed. So either he threw himself out of the car, or the officers pulled him out of the car because they couldn't close the doors, and they called for an ambulance or something, if I'm not mistaken. And while they had him on the ground, one of them chose to put his knee in his neck, which is extremely inappropriate and life-threatening to a person. Whether that was the cause of death or not, or drugs in the system, that is irrelevant to me. What's important is that he had no regard for human life, and that's just atrocious. And if someone's down and you're on top of them, you should always be checking for that person to see if they're okay. If maybe they calm down, you can reassess the situation. You could have said, okay, you're calm, now let's get into the car, or we don't need the ambulance any further. Those things never happened on the video. It just showed that he was just on top of him for 8 minutes, and had zero regard for whether or not he was alive or breathing or sick or injured, whatever the case may be. He had no regard. I believe he was with two other rookies who had a few days on the job, who, as a rookie, you should really not even try to challenge what a senior officer of 17 years is doing, and maybe you don't understand, and maybe you don't really see or know what to do. I can almost understand from a rookie standpoint that they don't know what to do. But for that 17-year veteran that was on top of him for 8 minutes without checking on him and making sure that he was okay, or letting up for him when he eased up, or reassessing the situation, I have no respect for him, or no cares for what happens to him after. If that's what he did, he violated the law, he needs to pay for his consequences. So could it happen again? Of course, because it's something that can happen depending on the person. You can't account for every single officer and their personality. You can't do it. Don't matter what job you're at. You can't account for every Amazon worker. You can't account for every teacher. You can't account for every doctor. And obviously we can see we can't even account for the president. So.
All right. Okay, would anybody like to add anything before we hop into the next question?
I would have to say I appreciate you guys answering those questions. One thing I think Sergeant Lemon mentioned it too, that the officer had no regard for human life. I think this is, and for me, and the reason why I kept mentioning I'm a golden rule type of person is because I mean, deep down we all see color, but I don't live that way. So when you said that, I was thinking like we're talking about these racial, insensitivity, trainings. What about human? We're all human at the end of the day. So I understand, and that's kind of where my too much training question came from, because could there be too much training about race to now that I'm an officer and I have my guard up because I'm learning so much about a race and how someone is so much culturally different than me, rather than thinking about them as a human first? Because I think that like you said, with the president, with the politics, with everything that's going on, I think it's a human thing that's really going on right now. I think we all need better human interaction. We all need better human understanding. And I think that goes beyond the job, like you said. That goes beyond any training you can give me, any officer, when we do step into the field. But that's my kind of stance on that whole situation, and George Floyd and things. I felt like I think the world was at a divide, and then also came together with all the protests. But I think it was more of a big thing for human beings, for like mankind, I think.
Right. I agree. And thank you for sharing that, Sharik.
Totally agree also.
I'm sorry?
I totally agree also that it's a human thing.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Now, Detective Lamon, you were speaking about body cameras earlier. I know you guys have to wear body cameras, but what are the policies in relation to the cameras? In many recent cases of police shootings, the cameras have either malfunctioned or been turned off. So what steps are you guys taking to ensure that this doesn't happen within your department?
Even within those departments, they all have the same policy basically, that if you have an interaction with someone, you need to put on your body camera. Some departments they may be a little bit more stringent with theirs, that the officer must have their body on camera at all times. Some just say, hey, you need to have it on during interactions. Anything else in regard to that? Does that answer the question?
In Trenton, you're saying any interaction police officer has with someone, they should have their body camera on.
Pretty much, yes. Pretty much if someone comes to you ask for directions, I shouldn't be, putting my body camera on, right? But, if I'm suspecting someone of a crime, if I'm advising someone of something legally within their rights, maybe I should think, yes, I need to have that on. Especially if you're on a call for service where someone's called for you to come to their location. A lot of times you don't really have time to put on your body camera. Sometimes you may see something right away. You want to act right away, and what's more important, your life or someone else's life, or putting on the body camera?
Okay, you have a good point there. But I don't know how I feel about that. I feel like maybe there needs to be some kind of mandate. Maybe everyone should just have it on. It should just be there, and I don't know.
So Drea, there is kind of a mandate with it. Even if you have a situation and you get out to react, you will take a minute to turn it on. Sometimes there's a delay because your mind is running to help the person, and I can on experience, because as you know, we've had a lot of homicides this past year. And it's very difficult when you're going to a situation like that and that people are calling for help, so if you're very close by and it's a couple steps out of you, your first instinct is to hurry up and get out and help. Then you realize it and you turn it on, so there may be a delay. It's not like you don't turn it on at all, but I'm pretty sure, Sarge, there have been some situations where you don't, like I said, our instinct is to help people and to go and do it as fast as we can. And sometimes your mind is not fully, you know, it's focused on that situation. Like you're focused on that job. And, you know, there's many situations I think I can kind of give you for you to see kind of what I'm trying to talk about. But the biggest one for me is a baby not breathing. We've gotten plenty of those calls where sometimes that's your focus. You're like, I need to get there. I need to help this baby out. Or a parent will come up to you and say, here, my kid's not breathing. You know, you're automatically, the first thing you're trying to do is help them. You know, so I have seen that happen. Just to give you a little kind of idea of why that would happen.
Okay.
And also just your adrenaline is pumping. Usually when they say malfunctioning, it's probably not something wrong with the camera. It may be something that happened. Maybe you tried to push it, you thought you pushed it, and you didn't push it correctly, or you may have pushed it too many times, and that was the malfunction. Nothing wrong. Usually nothing's wrong with the camera. It does malfunction sometimes, but usually that's not the case. Usually it's human error, you know, being in that moment.
Okay. All right.
Has
Well,
has
thank
there
you for
been
clarifying that. I'm sorry, Sharif, go
no,
ahead.
you're fine. Has there been any talks about like kind of upgrading cameras? Like, are these the same cameras from 10 years ago? Like, and that's just me being curious. Like, is there ever like a, hey, we might need something? I mean, technology is moving every, you know, second. Is that like a thing? Or is it kind of like not like priority, if that makes sense?
I think they get updated every few years. I think the first year we had them was 2016. So I don't think it expired past, you know, maybe last 5 years, 5 or 10, and then you get a new batch or something like that.
All right. We're sneaking in this question again. What is your plan for planned protests ahead of Biden's inauguration?
We're gonna make sure we do everything possible to keep everyone safe. You know, that's our job, making sure that everything is safe. We can't stop people from protesting. Everyone has the right to protest as long as it's peaceful. It's just a right that's given to all of us, you know, to be able to protest for what you believe in individually. But we can't take that away from you as long as it's peaceful. And that's what it is. As long as it's peaceful.
All right.
That, you know, but we will make sure that we do what we can to protect everyone. But it has to be peaceful.
Okay. Well, I just thought I would throw that in there again because I really want to know. Okay. So for time's sake, we're going to head on to the next slide of questions there. What is the purpose of patrolling? What percentage of your officers on patrol are actually from the neighborhoods they patrol? What attempts are there to ensure that patrol cars have at least one person of color when patrolling neighborhoods that are predominantly inhabited by people of color? Do you think this is a form of intimidation?
Okay, look, some parts of this I can't touch, so I will answer it, and I'll answer what I can. What is the purpose of patrolling? Also to prevent crime, you know, to ensure safety on the roadways and on the sidewalk, and to also provide presence. A lot of times just us driving down the street can prevent a crime, whether it's drug sales or shootings or assaults and robberies. What percentage of our officers actually from the neighborhoods they patrol? I want to say, I'm guessing, educated guess would be 50%. What attempts are there to ensure that patrol cars have at least one person of color patrolling neighborhoods that are predominantly inhibited by people of color? It depends. I don't think that we can ever say we only put Black officers in Black neighborhoods. I think that's not right to do. That would be like saying, do I only put white officers in white neighborhoods or Hispanic officers in Hispanic neighborhoods? I think that we try to serve the community. Let's say if they're Hispanic, which may have like a a neighborhood or a section of the city which is predominantly Hispanic, maybe we'll try to make sure that one Hispanic officer is at least in that section, to ensure that you're not constantly asking for a Spanish speaking officer, if you get what I'm saying. Other than that, we don't try to match it up to the demographic of the city. And I definitely don't think it's a form of intimidation, because usually it is what it is. We're matching up our officers according to our manpower. And do I think I believe that having more people of color within the department is definitely better for the police department and the city. Unfortunately, that's not the case. I want to say our percentage of African American officers is very low.
Okay.
Are officers from Trenton, and do they live in Trenton? I don't know what. Again, I'll say 50%. So 50% of the officers are from Trenton. And does the department have a plan to hire more people that represent the community that they serve? That is always the goal since I've been here. That's something I've always heard them try to do and push. I think my class was one of the largest minority classes of Black and Latinos. I think we had 35 officers in my class, and the majority of them were Black and Latino. I want to say probably 30 of them. So
Wow.
since then, it definitely hasn't been any class that size. Hopefully I answered your questions.
All right. Thank you. You did answer my questions. I think 50% is that's a high figure. 50%, okay.
50% officers from Trenton?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay. All right, well, I think that's great. All right, so once again, for time's sake, we're gonna head on to the next slide of questions here. Do you track demographics of stops? Is it public? What's the policy on small possessions of marijuana? And what have you noticed about the changes in the community since schools have been shut down?
Glenn, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I'm going to start with the last one. So what have you noticed about the changes in the community since school has been shut down? I will say that, and Sarge, you can correct me on this, I believe that there has been more stuff happening since school has been shut down, especially, with a lot of things being shut down because of COVID. I'm starting to see, a little bit more this year than what I did my last 2 years. I've been on the job approximately 3 years now. And with this year, and the reason why I think that's happening is because, like with schools, right? When you go to school, it's like your getaway. It's, you get to see your friends. Not only are you getting your education, but you're with, people that you get to talk to, people you get to interact with. You get that that ability to socialize with people. You get your sports, you get to go to sports activities. I know when I was in high school, I went to TCA. TCA was a huge basketball school. So I go into the basketball games. I played sports myself. And now with schools being shut down and everything being at home, it's extremely difficult to stay focused when you're in front of a screen all day long. I can't even do that at 25 in office, So I can only imagine what parents are going through. And not only that, but like parents are losing their jobs. Not everyone is able to provide the same way that they were for their kids before. There's a higher struggle, so teenagers, are getting more involved in the system because they're going out trying to find ways to help their families, and then at the same time, are they being deviant? Yes. But in the time that they're in, we're community affairs, but we're also with the youth section, right? So I'm a detective for the youth section, and I see these in these kids, you know, when they come up here to our office and we ask them, and we're a strong believer that it starts with the youth. You know, if you're able to build that bridge with that juvenile, you know, you can be that stop for them to not get to the system or anything when they're an adult. But you know, it's very high. But the screen thing, I know some people personally that are having a hard time, you know, with their children, because like I don't know how, you know, how they're expecting like a 5-year-old in pre-K to sit in front of a screen all day and focus and learn something. It's not, I'm a hands-on learner. I have to be hands-on, you know, I have to sit there, and it's just, I don't know. My brother's 17 and he's a junior and he's in school, and I ask him all the time, like, how do you feel? Do you feel like your grades went down? Do you feel like you're doing better? And he's like, sis, ever since I got home and started doing, you know, school at home, he was like, my grades dropped a little bit because I just couldn't stay focused. You know, his desk is in his room, his stuff is all off, you know, he's very good at that, but it's definitely been hard.
Yeah, I can only imagine. And now Trenton Public School, school districts around here are saying kids aren't going back until May. So I know we'll have to deal with it a little bit longer. So
Okay, I'll take on the rest of the questions.
Yeah.
Do we track demographics and stops? We can, but typically we don't. The Trenton is a community largely predominantly African American and Hispanic. So that's going to really just be our demographic right there. We have a small population of white or European, but it's a small population compared to everyone else. What is the policy for small possessions of marijuana? If you got some marijuana, you're going to be given a ticket. And that's always been the same way. Since I've been on the job, you'll get some type of summons and you'll go on your way. So that's usually what it's been for small possessions of marijuana. And back to the, have I noticed any changes in the community since schools have been shut down? I think just in general, since everything's been shut down, crime has actually increased. Don't matter what the crime is, it's kind of increased at some point about 10%, because more people are not working, more people are in need of money and services, and that's when crime takes place. And especially now, since COVID hit, we have pretty much emptied out our correctional facilities, and those people are on the street doing something, and there's no work. So what are they going to do?
What factors do you think might have contributed to that? You know,
I couldn't hear the beginning.
Hi, thanks. What factors do you think might have contributed to the really high number of homicides last year in downtown Trenton or in Trenton?
Just from my perspective, I think that, again, we had a lot of people released from jail. We had a lot of juveniles that are not in school and being mentored or parented. Now they're having more time to themselves, not going to school, and no reason to be home when you're not going to school. So they're out in the streets. A lot of these juveniles are that are involved in homicides or anything like that are also involved in drugs and gang activity. So all that has a part to play in the uptick in homicides.
Okay. And just to clarify, you said it's always been that if someone was in possession of a small amount of marijuana, they just got a ticket. You guys weren't arresting anyone for small possessions of marijuana.
Well, even the ticket is an arrest.
Yes.
So
Okay, so you get a ticket and you're getting arrested.
no, a ticket is an arrest.
Oh, I'm
So-
sorry. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
So it's really like a hand summons to tell you to appear in court on a week or two from whatever the interaction was. Depending on your own criminal history, that ticket could be either I have to go into jail right now, or I can be released on the street.
Okay, even with the new recreation laws, you're still getting that ticket.
They're
Yeah.
not.
Well, they
I'm
haven't
pretty
been
sure-
in place yet.
They're
Okay.
not in place.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
So we're
Okay.
yeah, we're not sure exactly how that's going to work until it goes into play. So once that comes out, then we can revisit that question.
Okay. All right. Well, let's revisit that question later on down the line. Okay, so let's go to the next step of set of questions, and thank you again for answering those questions. Okay.
Mhm.
All right, so this is our last bit of questions that we have for you. First, what other community partners have you been in communication with? What's the makeup of the most successful partnership with Trenton PD in the community? And what does your department need to improve?
Glenn, do you want to take one?
I was looking at the last one, but hold on, let me think.
All right, so I'll go at it. What community partners have we been in communication with? Well, I want to say probably our number one community partner that always goes out with us in some type of event is Starbucks. Starbucks community store here in downtown Trenton
Starbucks.
usually provides us with an opportunity to engage in conversation. We have coffee with a cop once a month during warmer weathers. And recently we took coffee with a cop from outside of Starbucks to destinations in the city in order to engage with community and just spark conversation, whether it's about policing or different services that are in the department or in the city. And that's definitely by far probably our number one partner, if anything.
Right.
Okay, and what's the makeup of the most successful partnership? Well, I guess
really
you just
just-
said it.
Yeah.
Starbucks. Starbucks is always there. Like we can always count on them. Like our coffee with a cop, we did coffee with a cop in cars. We were able to connect and bring some luxury cars and have like a little car show. So people were coming, they were able to interact with the police officers. They were able to view cars. You know, we have police officers that have some good cars too, and they were able to bring them out. We're planning to do that again this year and invite more law enforcement partners so that they could bring their vehicles and also. But I think coffee with a cop is our biggest successful thing with Starbucks, you know, especially for us for community affairs. And you'd be surprised, like people, they see a tent outside and they're like, what are you guys doing? We're like, do you want coffee? They're like, yeah. You know, so and it starts by just asking, would you like a cup of coffee? You know, it's not even like and if they don't want to talk, they don't want to talk, and that's it. They get their coffee, you know, but most people stop by and they tell us like, you know, hey, like, you know, I've seen you around before, or hey, like, where do you work? How long you been on the job? So we get it all, but it's definitely one of our best.
Well, that's great. I know that Starbucks downtown is really good with bringing community members together. I know they do their karaoke. Well, they used to do karaoke nights and everything. So it's a fun place to be. And you guys were doing that, but now you're partnering with Arm in Arm. You got Building Bridges. So you never know.
We have a new one, yeah.
Right? Okay, that's great. So next couple of questions. What are some of the barriers to good police-community relations, and what steps can be taken to eliminate them? How can Arm in Arm be an asset to the police force, and is there anything as an agency that we need to be aware of?
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
That's a really good question. I would say some barriers for good police community relations would be um, the warrior, probably the warrior mindset. You know, we have to be able to turn that off. We see and interact with so many bad elements that it's difficult to turn that off. You know, like even when we go home, you know, it's it's not it's not easy to turn off what you see during the day. You know, you remember we see dead bodies, people crying all day, people injured, um, babies injured. We see all those things, and you know we still have to go home and you know be happy to our families. And it's not easy to translate, even to go home and turn that off. Imagine while you're still at work, how can you easily turn that off when you know you're gonna see that in 5 minutes? You know, so that's the hardest thing, you know, when you're constantly in that warrior mentality, and hard nose and your bravado out and your confidence out. It's hard to show your soft side.
Right. Okay. Well, I'm glad that you can acknowledge that. One, thank you. How can Arm in Arm be an asset to the police force? And is there anything as an agency that we need to be aware of?
You want me to take that one, Blendy?
I told you didn't want the answer.
I think just being there, one, having these conversations so that everyone is aware of what you do, and then now we can take it back to our police department, and everyone else in patrol or wherever else can utilize you guys as a resource here in Trenton, that they have. It'll be another tool in their tool belt, you know, whether, you know, when we're engaging with people, everyone has a different set of tools, you know, things that you're aware of. A 22-year-old may have their youth, but a 42-year-old may have their wits and their mind of what actually happens in the city. And instead of maybe being physical with someone, you're able to talk to someone and change things. So just the conversation and knowledge of what you guys do and able to share that with the rest of the department, that's a big tool for us.
Okay. Well, we can definitely work on that, right?
Yes.
All right. Last question. Instead of being a cop or in a political scene, how else can we have a voice worth listening to? What platforms or resources should we use more? And what has peaceful protesting actually done in our community? What changes have you seen?
Okay, so I think, in my opinion, social media is like the number one platform right now. Everything from top to bottom is on social media, right?
Right.
I don't, you know, everyone's different, but if you're anything like me, I do it on my phone. Everything that I do is on my phone, you know, from social media to emailing to everyone I talk to getting in touch with family that I'm not even close by with, you know. So to me, you know, you don't have to be a cop or you don't have to be in a political scene to have a voice. You know, we all have a voice. And social media is your platform, but even when you're around your friends, like, you know, even when you're just hanging out or anything, if the conversation comes up, you should be able to speak to your friends about that. You should be able to have these conversations and tell them, you know, how you feel and what's going on. Because I think that's where it starts, you know, you start letting those next to you know. With the peaceful protesting, what it has actually done, I think is because I think sometimes, you know, but like just in general, we kind of put the blind eye to what's going on for time, and then something happens and then we're like, oh man, this happened, but it's like, it's been happening, you know, it's not something that's completely new. It's something that's been going on. And because of that blind eye and that is put, you you kind of have to revisit it, right? You have to kind of bring that awareness back. And I think it's actually brought back awareness. It's actually, for me, I will say it's actually brought back the importance of making sure that there's a good relationship, not even a great relationship with the community and law enforcement, you know, especially us patrolling these neighborhoods, our neighborhoods, you know, being in these streets, having them know who you are, getting out and just conversating with them. You know, it's not always about just being in your car. Policing is not always about being in your car and giving someone a ticket or stopping them or going to calls of service. Being a police officer is also about you making your own work. And by you making your own work, that means going out to meet people, knowing who's in your neighborhood, knowing who lives in what house or this house or that house, so that when you drive by, it can be a good morning, whoever lives there, or, you know, like I know I've met so many people on the job just conversating with them, not even just for calls of service, you know, just going out there to say hi to them. You know, I've gotten out plenty of times when I was in patrol and played soccer with kids, or, you know, if I see them, I'll stop and talk to them. Like, you know, it's things like that. It's not always about enforcing, like Sarge said. We're not enforcers all the time, you know. It's more about being there. And I think, you know, the relationship between the community and the police, from after, you know, everything that happened was so broken. And it's important to make sure that it builds up and that it gets stronger, you know. Obviously, there's a lot of opinions, but everyone's has the right to their own opinion. Everyone has the right to do that. And I feel like it's your job to let people see different things, you know. For example, like being on a job, you know, like they say, friends come and go. You know, especially with what's going on with the protests and everything that happened with law enforcement. There's people that, you know, I've been friends with for a long time that don't agree with it. And just because I have a uniform on, you know, don't agree with me being a police officer because of what's going on. But I'm a strong believer that even if you want to do best, if you allow this to take you out, then who's going to be left to make a change? You know, who's going to be left to talk to people and to show them that you still care? Because even if people believe that police officers don't care, somebody has to be there to tell them that you care and show them that you care. Because at the end of the day, when, you know, no matter what, that person is going to need you when you go to their call of service or when they see you. So it's about you building the relationship, you know. So I think that's the most important.
Definitely. I think building the relationship with your community definitely matters. And I'm so glad that you've seen that change in the community. Detective Lamon, would you like to share anything? Add anything to that?
Sure. I think that what else we can do instead of being, you know, on a political scene or being a cop is that we have to start with our youth. Our youth is our future, and we have to start by educating them and changing their mindset on life, especially here in an urban environment. A lot of times our youth grow up, tell you right now, they're struggling right now just to be in school. They were already behind any suburban school. Just imagine how far behind they are now with virtual learning for a whole year. Imagine a fourth grade or a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old who is at home with a parent, and that parent wasn't, even on normal circumstances, wasn't there to teach them how to read, and they were only getting instruction at school. Imagine how hard it is for that child now, for this whole year, not getting that instruction, only in school virtually. It's almost an impossible situation. Um, and now you can only imagine that's going on throughout every urban environment across the country for every 4, 5, 6-year-old who is already going to be behind, and it's just going to be further behind because of this pandemic. So to me, it starts there. You have to put everything into the kids. I don't care what it is, whether it's just mentoring or education or interactions, they really need it. And starts there. Everybody else, I really, it's the kids for me. My heart is broken just to even think about what they are going through over this whole year of being at home. Most kids are used to being in school 8 hours a day and probably getting all their meals right there. And Matt, what are they doing now?
Correct.
You know, don't know. So it starts there. It starts with the education. Starts with knowing that their government and their law enforcement are interactive with them, that people care about them, and that there's other ways in order to be successful other than being on the streets and following people that don't know what it's like to be successful. So.
Okay. I think those were all great answers. Thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you. The youth really are the future, and we really do need to invest in them. So I agree exactly with what you're saying, Detective Lemon. All right. That brings us to our last slide, our conclusion. Once again, I'm Andrea, Social Justice Committee Chair. There's my email, Detective Lamon's email as well, and Detective Pena, I'm sorry, Pena, Detective Pena, I'm sorry. I believe your email is gpena, GPENA @trentonpolice.net. Our committee web address is listed as well, armandarm.com/social justice committee, which is where you'll be able to find this open discussion that we had here today. So once again, I want to thank you all for joining this discussion. I think we went over some really good topics. There was a lot said. I'm still trying to digest it all. Okay, but I'm very thankful that we have this opportunity to create this safe space where we can have these discussions. I think it's exactly what we need. And I'm just very thankful that we had the opportunity to do this. So thank you so much, all of you, for joining this presentation, okay?
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity.
All right.
Have a good night.
Thank you all.
Good night. Thank you so much.